In this roughly 1 hour of Swift live coding, we're going to keep doing the expense report kata and take a step back. Last time I got a little too excited about the things I was discovering and was writing code that wasn't in use yet. So I think this time we're going to take a step back and move more carefully, allowing the code to evolve rather than telling it what to do. Hello, welcome to the Quality Coding stream. My name is John Reed. I am a senior consultant with Industrial Logic, where we do training and coaching for development teams and companies around the world. Hey, Mudshark, look, I gave you a special VIP badge. This was something new I discovered, so good to have you as always. Anyone else? There are a couple other folks in the chat I see, or rather not in the chat, but in on the joining us from the stream. Welcome. If you are watching this after the fact, give on YouTube. Hey, John CVV, glad to have you. If you're watching this after the fact, give it a like, give it a follow, and you are also welcome to participate in the chat, sort of, except for you, it would be in the comments on YouTube. So do feel free to add comments. All I ask is that if you have a comment about a specific move I did or something about the code, to add a time stamp so that I know when you're talking about. So yeah, I got my coffee. I am ready to roll. I realize this actually conflicts this time with the iOS Dev Happy Hour, and oops. Oh well. They moved it last time. I don't always join, but I like to join the Happy Hour sometimes. So let's see. Let us go to the code. So last time we started to do this doing a refactoring move called replace conditional with polymorphism, and I got carried away. And I think John CVV, you called me out on it, and thank you. You were like, oh, you're adding all this code that's not used yet, and I'm like, yeah, it's not used yet, so it's okay, but it's not okay. So thank you. I feel like I got too excited about it. Was more like a spike solution where I'm like, you can make a protocol of a protocol, like you can have levels of protocol inheritance. I also learned from coaching someone, mentoring someone afterwards that here I thought Swift didn't support abstract base classes, but it never occurred to me that that's what protocol extensions are for, that you can put into an extension actual methods that work on the things in the protocol. So it is an abstract base. It can be an abstract base class. I was very excited to learn that. This is one of the great things about mentoring, is that when the student becomes the teacher, oh, that's great. Because I didn't know that, or I hadn't put it together. So why don't we roll back? If it's over the limit, it is not nullified. It just gets a an X marker like this. You just get a, the bad mark. So I thought it would be good to go back in history, actually, and see, try again. I mean, I do so many commits, but I make them so quickly. I love small commits, and this gives us a chance to roll back, like add dinner. Let's have a look at what that is. Yeah, see, it was adding all these details when that's not what Martin said, Mr. Martin Fowler. In Replace Conditional with Polymorphism, he doesn't say create all the subclasses with all the methods. He says create create the hierarchy, leave it empty, and then we start moving stuff. So let's back up. Let's back up. Protocol. That was exciting, but let's back up. Back. I introduce expense protocol. I think that's where we need to go. So, wow, I'm throwing away half an hour of last time's coding, but it's learning. It's learning. Oh, you want me to keep pulling it up? It's more interesting. But but John, you were the one who called me out on this. I'm pretty sure you did. Um, uh, I mean, we could. There are other folks do both. um, I just, I'm, yeah, I'm hesitant to. This is one thing about I'm learning about professional TDD. I'm so used to being for so long being the only person who was doing test driven development, and that's not true anymore now that I'm at Industrial Logic. And one of the things I'm learning is that in the style that is often described as shuhari, so levels of mastery, sometimes you bend the rules. Like sometimes a test-driven person will just get excited like I did and start forging ahead, and then like, do you go back? And then it's merely instructive, which is part of what I want to do. Um, but it pragmatically, I think you usually wouldn't go back. You would just say, "Oh well, let's keep moving forward because that was interesting and we learned some things, and uh, you know, we can add the tests." Okay, okay. You folks are convincing me otherwise, and that's totally fine because let's see where it goes then. There are two things I'm well, expense limit. Hmm. We'll see. I just we'll reshape things as we go. Another suspicion I have is that I have too much, and maybe the hierarchy, the protocol of the protocol may be unnecessary. But let's find out. Okay, rolling forward then. Let's see where we were. We were moving on with meal expense, uh, and getting it going. Is meal expense limit? Hmm. All right. Let's find out what was the last change we did. Loop over transactions, not expenses. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. That's where we are. Right? We're this function, this method takes an array of expense and it maps it into the expense protocol so that we can then loop over the protocol instead. And this is where we were talking about bubbling this up. Like this works, but now it wants to break free and move up one level. Like here, this is looping over uh, an array of expense. Couldn't this do it as well? Well, let's figure it out. Let's have some fun here. And as always, I am open to suggestions. And as always, for anyone watching, oh, by the way, a number of folks have already said hello, but there are other people lurking. I don't mind lurkers. Of course not. You're more than welcome to lurk. But it's also fun if you say hello to each other. And because we have a global crew, and it's not just like about me, it's about you. And I'm so glad that you're here. All right, let's see what we can do. We want to change this to Let's see. Hang on. Do we need is meal expense when we have the meal expense protocol? Yeah, that's one of the things I was wondering. This is where I'm you're in the UK. Good. Yeah, Swiggy introduce parameter. I didn't even know that introduce parameter was a thing because app code doesn't have it. So when yeah, as much as I ooh and ah over app code, using IntelliJ with Kotlin was mind-blowing for me. Mind-blowing. All right. So let's try to change this and say, let me just take this bunch of transactions here and we'll remap it up here as well. And let's loop over, or let me change this signature to be expense protocol, where we're going to pass in the transactions and we no longer need this. Transactions becomes expenses. I'm just going to try this to move in small steps here. And if it passes, we commit. So what is this? This is a test-supported procedural refactoring starting to bubble up. Hello, Life for Tail. Has each commit done with TCR compile build successfully if changes were done in a specific package, which is part of the whole Xcode workspace, or is it okay to do TCR only for a specific package, even though the whole project will be broken? Well, that's a good question. I think that this plugin actually doesn't know how much I am testing. It just says if tests pass, if a test run passed. And so I think it would be fine to say limit yourself to a particular package or module and say, I'm only going to work in this module. I only want the tests I only want to run the tests for this module to get faster feedback, especially in Swift, where in a big project, things get slowed down and running all the tests can take longer than it just did. Expense protocol. What's easier, check a Boolean property or checking the type of the instance? That will be something that we'll get to. I really think that it is odd that we have the is meal expense and a meal expense. What's going on there? That's a little funny to me. And that to me is part of what I want to sort out, but we'll solve it forward, shall we? I made the mess. I may as well live with it. Okay, so we bubbled this up. So now we're passing in expense protocol. Transactions is no longer, if transaction is meal expense. All right, so I wonder if we can check if it conforms to the protocol. I usually don't like doing that, but let's find out. And let's get rid of this. This variable now is a lazy. It's not doing anything. So I'll just inline it. That is good enough to do. That's an automated inline var. Filter it before I pass it down. Ooh. Yeah, we were going to start to get into filtering definitely here. Let's see. Before I do the filter, it's like, what do we filter on? And the Boolean seemed easy, but maybe it's like, can I say if transaction is meal expense? Right? That's check type of instance. Again, that's pretty unusual. Normally you don't want to check the type, but I think now we no longer need this expense limit. Well, then what is it? It has nothing in it then. Is that if I get rid of it? No, it still has the expense limit. We need it is meal expense. That's what it is. So let's see if I can't get rid of them all. There's no lunch yet because we're just trying to get to lunch. Okay. Okay, now we can filter this. So instead of looping, I mean, basically, you can talk me through this. For transaction in, we can do that? That's interesting. I am not used to where clauses. But let's try to go without the where clause and see if we can't do a reduce, a filter and a reduce. So if I take the expenses and say, something like filter on is meal expense, right? That should then reduce the array to only the meals. And maybe that's a good step. Let me introduce a variable here and just call it like meals. Because then I should be able to say, now loop over the meals. And now this is unnecessary. Yeah. And now I should be able to do a reduce. So if we say meals reduce, well, we start with 0 and the next partial result, and maybe you can express this in a nicer way, but I'm just going to do it the way I know, is to say, let's What are the arguments? The first argument is the accumulating result, and the second argument is the expense protocol. So I should be able to say reduce 0 and take 0 plus 1 amount and return this. I think. Okay. That leaves a bunch of dead code. Obviously, everything after the return goes away. This goes away. And I'm going to leave... we could combine the filter and reduce. That's not an unusual thing, but I kind of like it broken out like that for now. And if there's some way to express this better, let me know, because I can't just take... I can't just say plus, because the second argument is not a number. We have to dig into the number. But that is remove dead and unnecessary code. Interesting. All right. What else? Write totals for expenses. I'm just wondering what else can bubble up, and if we can move away from expense altogether. I think what we're discovering is that need to map it first. Oh, okay. That's the... Yes. I see. I see. Okay, we'll probably lean into this, but the thought I was having was that expense, this very raw, I mean, this basically is what we start with. That's like one domain. What we are doing is we are or domain expression. We're translating across a boundary into a different domain, or an adjacent domain, where the domain we want is to print stuff, and we're converting the objects over using this factory method. So this seems like an interesting example to me of how if you want to do something with an object, you may want to transform them all into smarter objects that are particular to whatever needs to happen inside of a particular piece of functionality. Well, expense is already a value object, but like, do we... We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. This is interesting. This is fun. Okay. So let me lean into this. Let's see if we can't do the meals. Okay, so you're saying if I say meal amounts is going to be the meals map, and here I should be able to use there. And now I should be able to reduce the meal amounts. I'm just going to do this in small steps. I don't know what it's... Oh. Map to get the value. Now, what if... Now can I say this? Because I've heard of this. Ah! This is interesting. Now maybe it makes sense to inline everything because we have a pipeline. And a pipeline is pretty clear. Let's try it. I'm just going to inline that. I thought it would inline everything. Wait, is it keeping? Oh, remove the local variable. There we go. Inline that and inline that too. Why not? And remove the return. Oh, I should have done that with letting it do it. And how's this? Especially now we have a chain of things, and if I put the dots on different lines, expenses, filter is meal expense, get the amounts and reduce them. I like it. I know that really people who are really good with functional programming would just dash that out. Like that's what would come out of their fingertips. I am not that person. I work my way there with tests. And hey, if you get there, if it comes out of your fingertips, that's great. But still have the tests, okay? Because this is cool. This is very much a data pipeline that is the real strength of functional programming, and it is not an enemy with object-oriented programming. They live together. What do we do here? Write totals for, let's see where this is called. Write totals for expenses. Okay. Write expenses, write expense line. I feel like the next thing I want to do, because I have these methods ordered by sort of, well, in newspaper order. This one, which means write header, comes next, and anything it uses. Write expenses comes next, and anything it uses, which is this. And write totals comes next, which is down here. Hey, thank you for the follow, Walter Mann. Oh, a lot of folks are here. Well, a lot for me. You know, I'm not going to pull a 24-hour marathon to raise money for charity with but thanks for the follow. All right. So what I'm thinking is, rather than bubbling up this conversion from the sort of the raw domain into the printing domain at the very top, that we should just continue to work it up. And so the next one up, well, it won't be this one because that's working on a single expense. I feel like let's convert that expense into whatever we need to convert it to. Which we can do with expense make transaction. No, expense make transaction from expense. There we go. So this gives us our transaction. I love how this is one thing that if I ever lose app code, I hope whatever replaces it is able to deduce the variable name like this and make some suggestions like this. It's so good. Code flies out of my fingers, like I say on the app code site. So we introduce a transaction. The question is, can we now... Yeah, this is still gross. I don't want to deal with this. This is mixing so many concerns. Okay, let's back up. Try again. This is mixing so many concerns into one. This is one thing that at the smell that we the smell name, the code smell name we have for this at Industrial Logic is conditional complexity. This is check anytime you have lots of ands and ors, and on top of this we add a ternary. Like, let's just see if we can't. And this is another wonderful thing to be able to say, just increase that amount. When you have a conditional complexity, an easy first step is to extract it. I'm calling it check thing because what is it? I want to see what it is in the context, and it's hard to see until it's out. Okay, so it is if it's over expense. Can we find a way for an expense to say if it is over the limit? Exactly. Well, let me commit this, since that was automated. And let's rename this a bit. Make this an internal name like that. Yeah, so this is the smelly thing. Instead of saying is over limit expense, we're feeling that we want it the other way around. We want to say expense is over limit. That's a rename stuff, basically. So let's have a look. Not everything has a limit. A meal expense. So here's the thing. Something else that doesn't have a limit. Car rentals do not have a limit. Only meals do. But we can say, yeah, so car rental would answer, is over limit? No. Right? Whereas dinner could say, is over limit? Well, it depends on the amount. So, how to do this? Let's introduce this into the expense protocol and see what we get out of it. And then see if we can't flip things around. So this will be is over limit, which will be a Boolean that is a getter. And at this level, it's possible that we're missing a type. That's one of the great joys I have about evolutionary design, is discovering things, letting the code say, there's a type in here that's hiding. Like, let it out, set it free. But here, let's say, is over limit expense protocol. How to do this? So right now, this won't compile. Let's start with the car rental and say, let's add is over limit, and this will be no, it is not over limit. Can I pull it up instead of jumping right in? Pull what up? You mean move it into the expense? I'm I I'm reluctant to move it into the expense or to attach it to the expense. Because I want to keep this free and ignorant of printing. In fact, we ought to get rid of these strings as well and move them into the printing domain. So I'd rather have them be part of, I called it expense protocol because it's like, this is our expense. Oh, this is a printing expense. Or a printable expense or something like that. Ah, interesting. We'll discover things. So I think this is the right place. It's just we need to populate it here. Meal expense can provide this itself, but I'm going to start the stupid way. And or do we maybe we can put it in here and say amount is under the expense limit. I'm not sure if it's compiling. Okay. This is right. That's why it's yelling at me. So if I make an extension to meal expense, I should be able to stick that in. Thank you. Right. The whole thing, this is new to me, of that we can have abstract base classes. So that should compile. Nothing is using it yet. But before I check it in, I'd kind of like to use it. Is over limit. Okay, I wonder if I can replace all this by saying, hey, expense, make a transaction from the expense, and this is going to be our transaction again, and say, replace that with transaction is over limit, flipping it around. This is no longer used, but let's find out. Whoops. Mistake. I just lost everything I typed. Off by one, clearly. Off by one error. All right, smaller steps. You got slapped. Let's do it again. Ah, I had it backwards. Okay, let's do it again. Is over limit. This is going to be a bool like that. Let's extend meal expense. Actually, let me no. Let me try. So this will implement it with amount is over expense limit. Get it right. So those are fine. This one needs the additional one like that. Ooh, look at this is meal expense sitting here. We'll clean that up in just a second. Okay. I'm going to commit this so I don't lose it, even though nothing's using it yet. So this is flesh out or add is over limit. So that's a small step. One small step. The next small step is to take the expenses. Expense. How do I do it? Make transaction from expense. That feels misplaced to me. Like it should be not the expense's responsibility to make a transaction. Anyway, we'll come back. Right? Make and now can I say, and if it reverts, okay. You see why I broke it down like that? This is TCR, like slap me for losing all that code because it reverted it all. But now I can say use is over limit, which means this is now dead code. Excellent. I should be able to. Oh, it has no delete. Darn it. This is, again, where app code is not that powerful because it's not showing me in some like color or squiggly that, hey, this thing isn't used and would I like to delete it? Instead, I have to do it manually. Oh, the shame. Now back up here, is meal expense. That's dead. This is interesting. I mean, I really like. I'm talking about the whole thing, not something I just noticed. I'm appreciating your input and the shapes that we are uncovering as we move slowly. Transaction is over limit. So this is better. Hello, Silverback. JetBrains is it is very sad. If we look for app code, here's the sad announcement. App code is no longer available. I can use it only because I have it. And I will not let go until the last possible moment. Because there's my face with my quote. Yeah, it's sad. I wrote a blog post about this. Do I prefer to have computed properties on structs instead of lets? I don't know. Good question. Should there be a separate protocol to implement for expenses that has a limit? Yeah, that's a thing. Adam is going away? Really? I had not heard that. Oy. Wow. That's unfortunate. Bummer. My wish list. Dare I say this? Uh, at DubDub a year or two ago, somebody pointed out to me something I completely missed. A little reference that they were going to start using the LSP, Microsoft's Language Specification Protocol. Is that what it stands for? Basically, it's a way to represent the shape of the code in JSON, I believe. And if you can do that and basically have an abstract syntax tree that is cross-platform, cross-language, cross-engine, then we could have some really good tools that start to come into play that people can contribute to and maybe see some better refactoring, automated refactoring start to come alive. AppCodes is no doubt completely proprietary because they were the ones who started this all back with ReSharper and Java. And then that became that sort of, I think that became IntelliJ. Either that or the other way around. It's a time of transition. All right, let's see. We've got transactions here. We have a transaction here. That's kind of funny. But how do I feel about the rest of it? The meal over expenses marker, this is clear. I kind of like that. Maybe we leave that alone and we continue the bubbling up. Write expenses. There's our next one. Let's bubble this up. So let's take the transactions. I'm saying transactions, but I think that's because I didn't want to call them expense because we already have expense. And I named it expense protocol because I didn't know what else to name it. But I think this is a time to do a rename of a printable expense. About computed properties, if I chose it or if it's an after effect from copying the declaration from the protocol. It was, this is you teaching me about Swift. Definitely an after effect. I didn't know we could do that. So let's try it. You can do that? Look at that. Okay, this is me not getting your question because I didn't know this was possible. If I'm going down the route of a printable expense, shouldn't the protocol have a print? That's a great question. Computed property is computed every time you use it. This is me learning Swift from you. I'm liking this. I'm liking this a lot. Let's just, I was going to be bold and say, let's do them all. But then I'm like, but I'm afraid of TCR. And that's what it's for. So this is replace computed property with let. had no idea. I'm very happy. Let's do it again. So I should be able to say, let the type name. Oh, nothing's using this yet. This is part of what we haven't gotten to. So let's leave that alone. Oh, this is cool though. Ooh. This gives us an interesting path forward. Now, I had no idea. And look, it shows the implementation. Wow. I like learning. It is a way not to become completely old. Your hair will still go gray. But maybe you can stay young by learning. So, let's see about taking this next bubble up. Oh, transactions. I didn't like, there are some things I didn't like about it. Expenses map. It was this. It was, where should the factory method live? Should it be on an expense or shouldn't it be on the printable expense? Let's have a look. Here. Can I duplicate this and make it on printable expense? And I'll leave the name the same. Factory on printable expense. It might make sense for the thing to make its own. It just feels funny to me that we should be asking the expense when it's really the knowledge should be the other way around. And it didn't like it? Or is that a ghost error? Static member cannot be used on a protocol metatype. Oh, boo. I can't have a static? I could declare it. Why can't I use it? Way! Oh, I like your your reaction there. But wah! Really? Static member cannot be used on a protocol metatype. Yeah, it is a factory. And does it need to be in its own space? On expense, make a printable expense. I think my safest bet for now is to revert. Actually, I'm just going to reset to here and do that hard. Okay, we're leaving that alone because I want to move forward. Transactions. Let's bubble that up to here. And let's loop over these instead. Right? No worries. And no problem with you doing something else while we're here. Like, you make of your time as you will. That is totally fine. Okay. This is now just the same. Oh, but it didn't like that. Oops, I can't do this. Revert. Ear. Oh, where the heck am I? I'm used to having the terminal, the built-in terminal, which is a nice feature, pop up at the place and show me where I am, but I think it is off somewhere else, and I'd rather not just show you where it is. So let's revert. Roll back. Because we discovered the problem is that this is wrong. This is wrong. That is, by wrong, I mean it's relying on the expense type. And we need to get rid of anything that we need to switch over things from expense to use the transaction. So this is using the expense. This is using the transaction. This should use the transaction type name. There we go. And this should be still the transaction amount, I believe. There we go. Now we should be done with expense that this is the only place. So now I should be able to do this again. And change this to be a printable expense. Say this will come from that there. Now that's no longer breaking. Feels like we can extract 79, now 80, into its own line and have the types provide their own printable line. I like that idea. All right, this is bubble up. All right, and now we can inline this. Nice. Yeah, that's interesting. A great idea. And part of the question we had was, hey, if it's a printable expense, shouldn't it print? Like, why? Shouldn't it do this job? That is a great idea. I feel like we're nearing the end of this. Like, there's not much further up to go. So I don't think like there's enough for a whole new session. Oh, Mudshark, you have been with me, and we have seen things. So my debate is keep going or stop, because we've reached the 1 hour mark, which I like to keep. There are still things here. We are still discovering things, and we are still discovering responsibilities that need to move. Right? Yeah. Bye. Just give me. I'm almost done. All right. Then we will stop here. Hey, look at all these. This is what I like. Lots of small commits. The idea, the reason that this whole TCR thing came about is part of Kent Beck exploring an idea, a system he calls limbo. Limbo meaning how low can you go? Like limbo, like getting under the bar, you know, doing the limbo. What he envisioned is a system where this would not only this would go not squashed, but straight into the trunk, like a direct push. If it's green, it pushes. And that automatically, this would be part of the limbo system, is that your code that you're working on would pull in other people's code, I suppose, at some point that makes sense. And that's trunk-based development, but there's got to be more to it that he was thinking about for limbo to make it automatic. So that everyone is constantly working on the same code, even as we are working all over the place. Anyway, that was fun. This was a really good time. I appreciate everyone's input and ideas and teaching me. Hey, teaching me new Swift tricks for this old dog. And I think next week we'll still be on Europe. You're jumping ahead an hour, aren't you? So I'm staying put. The time of this will change for you because I've already shifted. Yep. So have a good day. For those who are watching after the fact, if you've watched this far, hey, give it a like, even if you disagree with stuff. And follow, subscribe, ring the bell so that you get notifications when new videos come out. And I will see you then next time.